My name is Cameron Svendsen, but I don't like anybody else pronouncing it because they obliterate it. And that's fine. So I just said, Sonia, just say Cameron S, and I'll go from there. It's just, if we just say Cameron, that's good. Kind of like Madonna or Sting, just one word, good enough. So today I'm going to talk about, and I do welcome comments, although I know we have a relatively small amount of time. I think it's an hour, and there's a lot to cover. So by all means, if you want to hold any comments or questions to the end, I'll be around. But if there's something that you're just really needing to ask or say, raise your hand and we'll try to cover it. So brain fitness is growth throughout life. And I put this presentation together a couple of years ago, and I try to update it every so often because, well, that's the way this country goes, is things are always updated. And something you thought was good for you, tomorrow's not. And then something you thought, I shouldn't eat that, all of a sudden it's got health benefits. You know what I mean? So I'm always trying to update it. If there's something that you've heard that is really good for me, or good for you, or good for us that I don't have up there, tell me at the end and I'll be sure to add it. And vice versa. If there's things that I'm saying like, cupcakes are great, eat as many as you want, tell me it's not. So brain fitness objectives. We're going to be talking about brain fitness, the organ being the brain, and we have plenty that you'll be familiar with, similar to heart and some of the other organs that, if you do the right kind of fitness, you take care of them. The brain is going to be what we focus on today, but there's going to be a lot of crossover, okay? And you know what? Before I go on to the objectives, I just wanted to give a quick background on me. I know some of you have heard me speak before. You might know me. I was a social worker at Boswell Hospital and Del Webb Hospital for 10 years doing discharge planning and a lot of interaction with the patients and the community members, working when Sun Health owned the two hospitals in the communities. And after that, I did some work for a local hospice. I now co-own a palliative care company, which I won't go into right now, but I thought you should know. It's been 25 years of healthcare industry work that I've done here in basically the west side. Now it's creeping into the rest of the valley and even down in Pima County. So my son goes to Tucson, so I figured I might as well work there too. Oh, yeah, so the objectives, I won't say these words too often, but neuroplasticity is the core of brain fitness. We'll get to that. Physical exercise and its impact on brain fitness we're going to be covering pretty significantly. The role of balanced nutrition for the same reason. Ways to boost cognitive reserve. I'll talk about that. Exercising the 5 brain areas, because we have 5 of them, not just one. And then at the very end, identifying the myths of brain fitness. All right, so neuroplasticity, strange word, but it is the brain's lifelong capacity to change and rewire itself in response to the stimulation of learning and experience. And this includes neurogenesis and synaptogenesis. Neurogenesis is the lifelong ability to create new neurons, and the synaptogenesis is to create new connections between them. All right, trust me, this presentation is not going to be that scientific, but I figured that some background into what these words mean so that we can sound smart when we work on our brain fitness. I thought that would be good. So this new theoretical perspective changed the way that we view the brain. For a long time, we looked at the brain as something that was going to deteriorate over time, nothing we could do. It's just we get old, we start to get confused, and that's it. That's the way it goes. We find out that's not necessarily true. It's not a static organ that only deteriorates with age, but actually a highly dynamic, ever-changing system. This concept that there's no limit to the brain's regeneration, like I said, is relatively new, okay? But it's what we're doing, it's how we're finding out about the changes and how we can actually take and cause the change and bring in changes into our life to make it grow and not be static. Our current lifestyles and actions play a big role. A big role, not just when we're 8, not just when we're 16, not when we talk about the brain growing, but throughout our whole lives. So no matter if we're 18 or 80, we still can make a difference in how it impacts how we can shape it. So I'm going to start with physical activity on how that impacts the brain and the brain plasticity. Physical or aerobic exercise generates measurable improvements in our cognitive functioning. So I know that in the past, we've talked about how physical exertion really is about the heart, right? You've heard that, and that's what we do. It's not just the heart. In fact, it could be the brain even more. It improves oxygen consumption, and of course the oxygen is such a big part of brain functioning. It's been found to reduce brain cell loss in older people, walking, bicycling, gardening, tai chi, yoga, other activities about 30 minutes daily to get the body moving and the heart pumping, which causes the brain to stay healthy. How many people, half an hour a day in this room, do you exercise? Good. And I'm going to talk more about specifically exercise because there's a whole lot. When I go to the gym, and I try to go every other day, we'll say. When I go, it's usually about 45 minutes. Ride the bike for 15 minutes and then some that's the cardiovascular, and then I try to do some weightlifting still. I don't think it's doing any good, honestly, but we're in fact, my friend and I used to go to the gym all the time, and we walked in one day, and there's this buff guy doing, and he's got this shirt on, and it actually says life-size action hero. I'm like, really? Life-size action hero? And then Bill, my friend Bill, he nudges me. He said, we should get one that says life-size stick figure. We didn't. We just keep going to the gym. So physical exercise triggers biochemical changes that have been shown to slow the deterioration of the brain through increased number of actual neurons, even in the aging brain, that reverses shrinkage. And this is the key word. We're not just talking about, slowing it down. We're talking about reversing shrinkage in the brain. It's very impactful. Increasing the brain volume, so in the frontal and temporal areas of the brain responsible for the executive functioning and memory. So executive functioning in the brain is that decision making, and memory, of course, is I think what a lot of us are really concerned about as we start to recognize some changes in how we are going about our day and what we think about and what we might forget during that time. Kind of normal memory stuff, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Greater brain volume 9 years later in a study done with participants over the age of 78. That study, is that one? Okay, I'll get to the study about the older people that were 78 and older. I'll get to that one in just a minute. But this study, there were two that were done in 2010 that found that children that participated in aerobic exercise had better performance and then larger brain structures. The hippocampus, which I have a picture of later in the slideshow, but the hippocampus is just this little small piece in the center of your brain that is responsible for the memory, and it's so important to have that be something that we focus on and grow with. So this is the study I was talking about. In 2010, by the Mayo Clinic, found the frequency of moderate exercise performed in midlife or late life was associated with reduced odds of having mild cognitive impairment. 1,880 people. Okay, so this was not a small study. This wasn't like 60 people. This is 1,800 people. 77-year-old adults. This study lasted over 8 years, testing cognitive functions every 1.5 years. They found that participating in physical fitness lowered the risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. And the more they were active, the less they were at risk to develop Alzheimer's disease. Okay, so in this population, physical activity can be broken down like this, because I'm sure a lot of people are like, well, what does physical activity mean? I mean, that could mean I'm walking around my house. They say physical activity is like this: 1.3 vigorous hours of exercise, or hours of vigorous exercise per week. Okay, vigorous. So riding your bike, breaking a sweat, I think is the way we look at vigorous. When you go outside and exercise, easy to do in the summer, right? Breaking a sweat. I mean, we roll out of bed and we break a sweat in 108 degrees. But this means no matter what time of the year it is and no matter where you are, you're breaking the sweat. That's vigorous. 2.4 hours of moderate exercise and 4 hours of light exercise per week. I mean, I think based on the show of hands, you already achieved that. I mean, and you know better than I, but I think 4 hours of light exercise a week is easy. And they were saying that this is proven that out of the 1,800 people that it actually did slow the process. Not cure Alzheimer's, we haven't found that yet, but slowing the process of cognitive decline. Okay. Going right into nutrition. I think this part is harder to handle and a little bit harder to get a hold of because of all the changes. Again, physical activity has been proven to help the heart and the brain for years, and it's kind of like you choose the activity. Do you want to go swimming? Do you want to jog? Do you want to bike? Do you want to do yoga? You can choose your favorite activity as long as you participate. Nutrition's hard because we like the food we like. We grew up on certain things, and suddenly they're not good for you anymore, right? Get to that specifically. So the role of balanced nutrition and brain health. The brain's a very demanding part of our body, and we don't think about it. That's funny to say. We don't think about our brains, but we don't think about how we are treating our brains. We're thinking about all the other things that we're needing to take care of, and yet we use about 20 to 30% of our energy, the intake, 20 to 30% daily of the energy is used by the brain. Although it's only 2% of our total weight. How much does the brain weigh, do you know? It's like 10 to 12 pounds, I think. I haven't weighed mine lately, but that's what I've heard. So it's responsible for 15% of our cardiac output, 20% of the body's oxygen consumption, and 25% of the glucose utilization. The reason that people don't consume enough calories in their day are more likely to experiencing changes in their brain functioning. In fact, skipping breakfast is associated with lower verbal fluency, ability to solve problems, or the lack of motivation. Now, I know what you're thinking. Just drink coffee then, right? Anybody like coffee? Silly question, right? So I literally come here to the Colonnade about once a week to have coffee in the cafe here because it's the best coffee anywhere. It really is. I don't know if you have the coffee here, but literally is, so make sure you go there if you don't already. So what's good to eat? What is good for you? What's the first thing that comes to mind? Somebody yell at me. Steel-cut oatmeal. Good. And that's recently, right? I mean, we always liked oatmeal growing up, but now we're like, oh, steel-cut oatmeal. All right. I don't even know what that means. You got to cut it with, Fish. What kind? Salmon. Good. Nuts. Good. Basically any kind, too, from what they're saying. Broccoli and kale. You know, growing up, I didn't even know what kale was. And then suddenly 5 years ago, I'm in Boulder, Colorado, and my sister says, you've got to have kale. It's the best thing for you. And ever since then, we found out just how good it is. So, like the heart, the brain needs the right balance of nutrients. It definitely does. So here we go. This is what's good to eat. We know this. Vegetables. You've heard it all your life. How many of you struggled with this growing up? Me. I've had to learn to adapt to vegetables. My mom force-fed me green beans, and that was the worst thing in the entire world when I was a kid. And now I love them. So I'm doing the same thing to my daughter. She hates me. Fruits. What kind of fruits? Berries. Berries are the best. And yet they say also kiwi, pomegranate, apples, bananas. We know that an apple a day keeps somebody away, but the bananas and the potassium and all that, great for the brain. Peanuts, but like you said, all nuts, but peanut butter is fantastic. Fish, as you said, salmon, tuna, fantastic foods because they have the omega-3. Eat a lot of avocados. That is the best food in the world. Right? No? Olives, almonds, pecans, beans, rice, seeds. I mean, all of these things some of these things are relatively a new introduction. I didn't know what flax was. I thought that was something you did when you brush your teeth. Whole grains are so important, basically because of the soluble fiber. But there's a lot more than just the grains themselves. They're found in a lot of things, but they have to be whole grains. Chocolate, dark chocolate's really good for you, right? But don't have it at 11 at night, you'll stay up. And then red wine. Moderate consumption. I always get people in the audience going, yes! Moderate consumption. And actually, they say a moderate consumption, like 1 glass of alcohol of any sort, is okay, actually, for the brain a day, but just not over an indulgence per se. What is not good to eat, do you think? You know this list is going to be long, right? For the rest of the time, we'll be talking about what's not good. No. Yes, potato chips for sure. Sorry to say, but ice cream just isn't good for us. Processed meats. So the cold cuts that we think, over at Subway that are so good for us, not so good for us. Processed meats and cheeses. Here's the really bad news. Pastas and bread. Now, you've probably heard that this isn't good from a cardiac standpoint, but this is really bad for the brain. The white breads and the wheat breads both. Did you know that? So unless they're whole grain, the wheat and the white has the same nutritional impact. 0. Negative. So I wish I could convince my daughter, who's 9 years old, not to have a high-carb diet. Here, have your vegetables, but man, it is tough. When you get them stuck on mac and cheese early in their life, that's what they go for. Of course, candy, so, Halloween, but that's it. Lard and butter, margarine, any high fructose corn syrup stuff, which is found in just about everything. Soda, made with anything more than sparkling water, white bread, white rice, hydrogenated oils. So this is all coming from the Alzheimer's Prevention Cookbook. Are you familiar with Dr. Sabah? Marwan Sabah wrote the Alzheimer's Cookbook, put that together. That will tell you everything you need to know from a brain functioning standpoint, what is good and why. And not only that, it gives you a lot of recipes. So for those who still endeavor into the kitchen to actually cook and beyond the microwave, fantastic book for that reason. What's not good to drink? Soda. Does anybody drink soda on a regular basis? Is that your go-to drink? Yeah. It seems like more and more, this is what kids, you see the advertising, right? Not just at the Super Bowl time either. You see how much advertising goes into the sodas and the high energy drinks, the Gatorades and so forth. Brutal for your body for so many reasons. The carbonation, the aspartame, the sugars, the high corn syrup stuff. A study from the American Journal of Public Health found that people who drink 2.5 cans of soda a day are 3 times more likely to be depressed and anxious. So what is occurring to our brain is not, this doesn't have to do with memory as much as it has to do with depression and anxiety, which obviously is not something that we want. Research presented by the American Stroke Association indicated that drinking diet soda daily is linked to significant higher risk of vascular events that correlate with vascular dementia. So that's diet sodas, and I know that diet sodas were really big in the 70s and 80s when they first introduced Diet Coke and Diet Pepsi and so forth. I don't know if it's still being quite as popular today, but the aspartame that is inside of it. Has anybody heard of aspartame, first of all? Yes. Do you know the dangers that are associated? No, what are they? Well, it contributes significantly to decay inside your brain and decay inside your veins. What's a decay? Decay, just quick, decay, just dying, basically. To your organs, to your internal mechanisms, this aspartame, and you go online, by all means, go online. Do I have the spelling here? I don't know, aspartame, aspartame. the ingredient, don't be misled, because there's a lot of people out there, a lot of people that make the sodas that are trying to tell you it's okay to consume. It is not. And it's typically found more in diet sodas than regular sodas, but it is found in a lot of the high energy drinks. But the dangers of it, just like I say, go online, I won't spend too much time on here, but the amount that is consumed by people is staggering. A teenage male drinks an estimated 868 cans of soda pop every year. It's a lot of soda. Now, there are 160,000 fast food establishments across the United States with over serving 50 million people daily. That means 44% of us, almost half of American, drive through a fast food window at least once a week. And they're all over the place, right? Those things are the easiest franchises to establish. They pop it up overnight and then, start selling whatever the ingredients are in those. A study in the public health nutrition concluded that consumption of any fast food, so I'm not just saying McDonald's or Burger King, but anything, donuts, cakes, croissants, hot dogs, hamburgers, pizza, contributed to depression, and the more the subject consumed the food, the more depressed they became. An international study that found that people that consume fast food were 37% more likely to fall prey to depression over a 6-year period than people who had lower consumption. Now, I'm not sure what your views are or how you look at depression, because I do deal with what's called palliative care. We are looking at depression and other behavioral issues really closely, because what they're doing is it's causing people to go to the hospital for other reasons, and they're finding that depression is really the underlying impactful cause beyond just the bodily, like the physical body, whether it's cardiac or renal or a liver disease or anything, that there is a depression there. And this is kind of what we can point to, is back to the poor nutrition. So, and the palliative care issue that we have is how to impact that. How to impact that. You can't just send a nurse out and say, you're depressed, well here, take this medication. This has got to be something where we change our behavior of consuming the wrong foods. There is a huge underlying impact this has. A 2011 study published in this Journal of Neurology titled That found that eating fast food is connected to brain shrinkage that can lead to Alzheimer's. This study is one of the first to look at trans fat blood levels and their effects on the brain. So again, beyond the depression, we are looking at precognitive decline all the way up to Alzheimer's being impacted by fast food and by poor nutrition. So what's the solution? Because that's what this always has to come down to. We can talk about all the bad things. We could say, how do we fix it? Bottom line, follow the 90-10 rule. 90% of the time, eat what's good for you to the best of your ability. And the remaining 10% of the time, you can indulge a little bit, okay? There's plenty of good things to eat out there. And look, we all have our past history of nutritional habits and things we're comfortable, our comfort foods, right? Like, what are your comfort foods? What's your go-to food if you're thinking, I just want that? Mine's French fries. That's my favorite thing in the whole world. Well, I mean, apart from my wife and kids. I love them. I love popcorn. And I was just reading yesterday, because you've heard popcorn's good for you, right?
It is.
It is good for you. But not microwave popcorn. And not popcorn with too much salt. And not popcorn with too much butter. Just, if you go and you kind of look at the non-GMO stuff inside a health food store like a Trader Joe's or a Sprouts, you can see the difference between the bad popcorn and the stuff that they sell there, which is healthy popcorn. And it still tastes good. But these are the things we don't know, because if you just get somebody that says popcorn's really good for you, you're going to think, I'm going to throw this in the microwave and I'm going to have health food. That's not the case. So anyway, 90-10 rule is really important. Is 10 enough for you? Should we bump it to 12? It's the 88-12 rule. All right. What's the dietary solution beyond just 90-10 or 88-12? Be sure to eat food high in vitamins. We've been hearing that forever, right? Some of us just feel like, well, if I supplement with vitamins, like actual tablets, then I shouldn't have to worry about the food that I eat. Most of you have probably heard that although the supplement is positive, it's not good enough. That getting them directly from the food is actually the best way to go. So here are some things. The most important ones are vitamin B, C, D, and E, and this is where we get them from. And these are just examples. You can go and kind of do further research on your own if you want to see where else you can find these vitamins. But vitamin B, asparagus, spinach and leafy greens, chicken, fish, and we talked about the different kinds of fish, eggs, and fortified cereals. Fortified cereals means not Lucky Charms. All right? My daughter's very upset at that. Vitamin C. What's the first thing you think of when you think of vitamin C? What's the first fruit? Orange juice, right? Well, good thing if you don't like citrus or you don't like oranges in particular, there's other things. As it says up there, bell peppers, kiwi, broccoli, berries, citrus, tomatoes, peas, papayas. Not really sure where you get papayas. Does anybody like those papayas? Sprouts? That's nothing I've really ever had. My dad used to give me papaya pills as a kid. Before I would play my soccer game, I was like 10 years old. He'd say, "Here, this is high energy." Pop it in my mouth. I hope they were. Hope they were papaya pills, Dad. Some illegal substance to make me play better. That's what Peyton Manning says. Vitamin D. What's the first thing you think of when you hear vitamin D? Milk. What? Sunshine, right? Right? Of course, then you say, wait, how much sunshine? Because then I don't want to have cancer. I just want my vitamin D. It's a happy medium in there somewhere. So vitamin D, fish oils. Does anybody take fish oil? Yeah? Do you do the vitamin or the capsule, or do you actually spoon it into your mouth? Capsule? So my wife comes home the other night and she brings some. She says, "Look, I have fish oil. Let's eat some." What are you, crazy? That's the worst thing in the world. But then I tasted it and it actually had a little bit of an orange citrus flavor to it, and it wasn't bad. And so we've been spooning that once a day into our mouths. Yeah. So consider that, but definitely go with the good tasting fish oil. Mushrooms, beef, liver, cheese, egg yolks. Egg yolks. I didn't know that. Because they say that is the white part better or the yellow part? The yolk. The white is, right? Both are now? Well, that's what it says, the egg yolk here. So I just typed this up yesterday, so that's good news because us folks like the yolk. Vitamin E. Sunflower seeds, avocado, almonds, and I would bet beyond almonds there's some other good nuts. Yeah, walnuts, absolutely. Yep. I never see cashews, and those are always my favorite. Shrimp, broccoli, butternut squash. So again, just examples of where you can find these vitamins, but there's more food, of course, that you can find them. These vitamins affect the brain in a positive way that help boost its volume and performance. Studies show that these foods were connected with better performing executive functioning, planning abilities, problem solving, and multitasking. Now, multitasking is an interesting thing. Are you all good at that? You think, let's see, I drive and I text. No, that's not what you should be doing. By multitasking, there's a lot of different ways, and we do it all the time. We just don't often know that we're doing it all the time, but we really are. I remember when my daughter was 4, and she's 9, almost 10 now, but when she was 4, she was typing at the computer like she often does, and sitting there working, and I said something to her. I said, "Reagan," and she wouldn't look at me. And I said, "Reagan." She didn't turn around. "Ray." She goes, "What?" And I said, "I forgot." Because, there's only so long that you can ask your daughter or your kids for something, and then you're just like, what was it that I was saying? And she says, "Well, maybe you should learn to multitask." At 4, she's telling me that I should learn to multitask. And I said, all right, that's it. Turned back around. And then under her breath, she says, Mama knows how to multitask. Boy, she went right to the room, right to her room. Mama knows how to multitask. So the first part was about the physical exercise. The second part is about the nutrition. This is the fun part. This is the part where you all probably endeavor on a regular basis. Even if you don't know you're doing it, this is the fun part. So mental exertion. I like that cells that fire together wire together. That's the development and the connection of new neurons. Neurons that are active at the same time become closely associated and connected. The more often neurons fire together, the stronger the connections become, and the most important part, new neurons can be created. So for those of you familiar with neurons inside the brain, this is the part that kind of carries the messages. This is the part that we worry about as we age and as our cognitive abilities decline. What they're saying is, if you do the right amount of physical exercise and you do engage in the right kind of nutrition and you do perform mental exertion on a regular basis, that new neurons can be developed. See, we were always just assuming that they were dying and that there was nothing that we could do about it and that it was inevitable. And we were relying on our heritage. We were hoping that in our family the gene pool was a good one. Good news is we can create new neurons. So, any daily routine that prompts thoughts, memories, or decisions is a mental activity. You are doing that right now. You do it every day. We all do. Mental activities. We are people in America who like to plan. That is a fact. We like to. It doesn't matter if it's holidays. It doesn't matter if it's your day, week, your appointments. We like to. We like to have that in a little box, ready to go. But the baseline activity of mental activity is not good enough. It's insufficient to generate neuroplastic changes. Engaging in true mental exertion is the catalyst that can strengthen neuron connections. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about, is what is a mental exertion. The challenge is both seeking to learn and master a new skill as well as engaging in the process on a consistent basis. Results have shown that frequent mental exertion in the form of challenging activities can successfully delay cognitive decline. And it's shown that possible to build up the brain's resilience and efficiency, making it better equipped to delay the onset of dementia-like symptoms. Reserve, the cognitive reserve of neurons and abilities can offset losses by Alzheimer's and other dementias. So a person can tolerate progressive brain pathology without demonstrating cognitive failure. Now, again, that came from a book called The Sharp Brains, 2013, a group of doctors that put this information together after studies that were done. There are 5 main brain areas. I told you that in the beginning, one of the objectives. So these are the 5 main areas that we'll talk about as we wind down here. How are we doing? Okay. Memory, language, problem solving, visual and spatial, and concentration. Can you think about where you're the strongest currently and where you might need some work? It's funny, I married a speech-language pathologist. Try being married to a speech-language pathologist and ever winning an argument. Does not work. Plus, she's from Jersey and she's Chinese Colombian. So even if I did win, I have to pretend I didn't. All right, so we'll start with memory. Brain area number 1. Memory and new learning begins with, do you remember I said this at the beginning? The hippocampus. This is the structure that has the ability to generate new brain cells with stimulating environments, can be damaged with chronic stress, and is hit early by Alzheimer's disease. So that area right there in the very center, right up from the core there, small, and yet it can grow. All right, so brain exercises for your working memory. And remember, we're talking about mental exertion, because if it was easy, everybody would do it. Say the alphabet backwards as fast as you can. Have you ever done this? Try it. You got to Z, right? No, you didn't?
I learned to do that for my father when I was about 5 years old.
Oh, did you really? She learned to do it for her father when she was 5 years old. Well, that's perfect. That's why you have a bigger hippocampus than the rest of us. You know, I kind of cheat when I do this because when I was in 3rd grade, or maybe it was 1st grade, I had the alphabet up on the wall in my classroom so I could look at it. In my mind, I can still see it, and I can go, you know, Z, Y, W, or X, W, V, U, T, S, R, etc. You know, you can do that if you cheat. But that's not the point of this. The point is to not cheat. How about this one? Say the months of the year in alphabetical order, and then try doing it backwards in reverse alphabetical order. These are meant to, so this speech-language pathologist that I know, the one that lives with me, she told me, she calls them and I've forgotten, it's something sevens. So you start at 100 and you count backwards by sevens. I can't remember what she calls it, but she does this with her either the students that she works with or the patients that she works with, just because the 7 is such a random number, right? It's not easy. It's not an even number to subtract or add. So if you start going backwards by 100, you go 93, 86, 79, and you just go down. Just do that. You'll never really memorize it, or maybe you will, but this is the mental exertion, and this is what helps us grow this. Find the sum of your date of birth. So add up your date. I do this all the time with addresses. Like when I'm looking to go buy a house, which how often does that happen, right? If I pretend that I'm going to buy the house I drive by that I really like, I'll look at the address and I'll add it all up, and whatever that number comes to is either good or bad luck. And if it's a good number, I'll say, okay, I'll buy that one later. Name the 2 objects for every letter in your complete name. And by the way, you don't have to do this right now. These are just ideas for you for mental exertion. So please write this down and practice this when you have time. Wherever you are, look around, and within 2 minutes, try to find 5 red things that will fit into your pocket and 5 blue objects that are too big to fit in your pocket. Probably don't do that while you're driving, though. You're like, oh. All right, so that's working memory. The more you do these examples, okay, plenty more to choose from than this, but this will help build your working memory, which I know is a big concern for a lot of us as we get older. Number 2, language. A critical behavior of your brain, of course, is your language. The ability to communicate is necessary to our species, our human survival. Language entails the rhythm, stress, intonation, pitch, and tone of our speech. It involves spontaneity, tempo, content, volume, etc. It's symbolic, it's spoken, it's written, it's perceived and comprehended. It is the very basis of the way that we communicate. Lots of different types of languages. Oops. Okay, so you saw the first one, but that'll be an example for you. So this is the brain exercise for language. Give me the word that is the similarity between these 2 words. A lock and a piano. Key, good. How about ship and card? Deck, good. Tree and car. Trunk, wow, we got a language expert down here. School and eye. Pupil, good. Pillow and court. I heard it. Case. River and money. Float. That's good. That's not the one I had, but bank. I mean, float is good. We want people floating us money, right? Bed and paper. Sheet. Army and water. This one's a little harder. Oh, nice. Maybe it's not. Good. Tank. Tennis and noise. Right? Racket. Smoker and plumber. Yes. Pipe. Who said crack? I heard it. All right, so that was an example again. That language. That's an example of how to kind of build that. Brain area number 3, attention and concentration. Attention is the most basic and necessary function of the brain. The brain's stem and frontal lobe are responsible for basic attention, processing, and concentration. Which is, by the way, not an easy thing to do for the audience, right? It's anytime you're ever sitting in an audience like you are right now, concentration it's tough. It's an activity. This is not passive. All of you have to, you're battling so many things. You're battling like what you're doing later in the day and when you need to go shopping and pick things up and did you leave something at home? There's so many things that you think about all the time. Concentrating is active. While a deeper level of processing is not necessary for attention to occur, it's also true that a deeper level of information processing cannot occur without normal attention. Have you ever heard of the Stroop effect? I'm going to see how good your attention is here, or your concentration. So it's an effect, it's a kind of a test named after John Ridley Stroop, who it's been something he's been talking about and published in 1935. So here's what he did to increase attention and concentration for subjects that he dealt with. Say these out loud, but say the word. Or say the color. Say the color. Say the color. Takes a little bit of time, right? If you have to say the color, green, blue, if you go down, green, blue, red, blue. Can't even do it. How easy is that on a scale of 1 to 10 for you? How about in Spanish? That might be a little harder for those who don't speak Spanish. So good concentration, all of you right now. This is a great way to wake the audience up. All right. If you need to see that again, or if you want to look at that, Stroop is his name, and you can go online and check that out. Brain area number 4, visual and spatial. Your brain has the ability to appreciate and interpret space in multi-dimensions. You understand where you are in your environmental space, and you know how your environment is positioned around you. This skill is necessary for behaviors that we do every day, walking, driving. It's orientation in the world, depth perception, and directional ability. It's believed that the non-dominant parietal lobe is one important region of the brain for visual spatial skill. So, this is the exercise I want you to do. In which direction is the bus pictured below traveling? It's going that way? How do you know it's going this way? It's standing still. Okay, well that's true. It is right now. Right. Good point, people. Right. Okay, she got it. So it is, oops, I'm sorry. Let's go back. It's going this way, because if it was going this way, you'd see the door. The door's on the right side, so it has to be going this direction. It's a bus. Now I thought, when I looked at this the first time, I thought it was coming right at me because I thought those were the headlights. Scared me. And the last brain area, number 5, problem solving. How many of you loved word problems in math? That was the worst part about school. The very worst part about school. So I thought I would bring it to your attention, my weaknesses. Executive functions. This is where the problem solving comes in. Executive functions refer to those behaviors that are primarily related to frontal lobes in your brain. These behaviors include planning, working memory, attention, problem solving, verbal reasoning, inhibition, mental flexibility, task switching, like multitasking, etc. It helps us with a wide variety of complex behaviors, including logic, organization, scheduling, impulse control. Okay, so problem solving is important, obviously, for those reasons. Question number 1. Of the 100 people at a recent party, 90 spoke Spanish, 80 spoke Italian, and 75 spoke Mandarin. At least how many spoke all 3 languages? And I know you're going to look to me to give you the answer, but I just told you I'm terrible at these things, and I figured it out one time and I've forgotten since. Luckily, I have the answer on the next slide. Anybody have the answer you think?
75.
You're going with 75?
She got it right away. Just like that.
Well, I'll give you the answer. Ready? 45. Now, they got this by saying 10 could not speak Spanish. All right, so if we go back to the question here, 90 spoke Spanish, so 10 couldn't speak Spanish, 75 spoke Mandarin, 20 could not speak Italian, and 25 could not speak Mandarin, so there could have only been 10 people who spoke none of these languages. That would maximize the number of people who could speak all 3, and the problem asks at least how many speak all 3. Therefore, we must assume that 10, 20, and 25 people are all separate people. I mean, you can see where this is going. All right? This is the kind of thing that if you can figure it out, even if you work backwards, even if you know the answer and you go, okay, let me think about this for a minute, and then you work it backwards, that increases your problem-solving capacity. I'll give you another example. What is the frequently used English word containing these letters and in this order? Ready? Or you want to try to figure it? All right. Did you get it? So bookkeeper. It looks pretty strange, but these are the kind of games that you can go on. If you go on online and look at the brain games, these are the kinds of things that you will sit and look at. And some might come real easy to you, and some might take you for quite a while. And that's okay. It doesn't matter if it takes you all day. Your brain is working. We spend hours watching TV as a population in the United States of America. And there are so many choices nowadays. When I was growing up, there was ABC, NBC, and CBS, and that was it. Now, I mean, it is practically unlimited. And to make it worse, there's Netflix. Does anybody have Netflix? Well, since you do, does anybody watch Person of Interest? Oh my God, that show's the best. Right? I love that show. How cool is the man in the suit, right? Okay, but that being said, we're talking about problem solving. The more we watch television, the less we problem solve, because it's just given to us. It is just stimuli that our brains are absorbing. It is not causing us to work. So, brain fitness, myths, facts. Last part of the presentation here. Myth number 1. Genes determine the fate of our brains. This is what we've thought forever. We've thought that it's just in our heredity. It's our family. If my grandfather has Alzheimer's, well, I am doomed. It's not necessarily true. And that's not to say that the gene isn't there. It's that forever we've just been, I guess, just a victim. Without thinking, we have the ability to do something about it. Lifelong brain plasticity means that our lifestyles and behaviors play a significant role in how our brains, and therefore our minds, can evolve. Myth number 2, medication is the main hope for cognitive health and enhancement. Look, I'll tell you right now, there are people out there that have more medication in their cabinets that they even know how and what it should be used for. And actually, we're probably guilty of that, because the one thing that we do we, not just me and wife and kids, but I think everybody, is you just keep medication. You know, you don't throw it away because you're like, I'll probably use that, and then you don't, and then you forget what it's for, and I mean, by the time you look at the expiration date, it says 1980. You're like, I probably should throw this away. But the bottom line is, this is not true. Non-invasive interventions can have comparable and more durable benefits and are also free of side effects. So keep eating the good food. Keep taking the supplements. Keep exercising or add new exercises into your regimen. Myth 3, there's nothing we can do to beat Alzheimer's disease and cognitive decline. I think what's really important for you to know is that memory changes are inevitable. That doesn't signify Alzheimer's disease, that cognitive decline is what it is, but that you can strengthen your mind to limit those things. And that's really important to recognize here. I mean, we're probably all somewhat guilty of doing some things. I was driving through the neighborhood and I turned down the wrong street a couple of years ago. And it took me a second to realize where I was. Does that mean that that's pre-cognitive decline? No. It means I had a lot on my mind. If you don't have a lot on your mind, God bless you. I mean, I guess vacation 100% of the time could be a good thing, but then it also could be a bad thing because you're not probably doing a whole lot of mental exertion. So I would just say it is okay. Don't be hard on yourselves if you're forgetting things. That recognize that those changes are normal, that there are some changes that are probably a little bit of a warning sign. If you're continually, leaving your keys in the refrigerator or something like that, it's probably where you want to go. It's not where they go. Maybe I should, get my physician or a neurologist to check me out. But there is something that we can do. And while nothing has been shown to prevent the pathology of Alzheimer's, there is an abundant research showing that we can delay the onset of symptoms for years. I'm thinking that for those of you that have had a long education in your life, and education, I don't just mean schooling, I mean raising kids and teaching them and, engaging in any type of classroom type style of new things. Sun Health is one of the best places to go, especially with the Center for Health and Wellness. Fantastic place to go if you've never done yoga before, or you've never done Tai Chi before, or you've never gone to, and you probably engage in these educations once in a while. That's what I mean. Get out of the house and go do something, and that's what we're finding can make a difference in changing the course of this cognitive decline. Myth number 4, heart health is brain health. Although there are similarities, these are different organs, and we can treat our brain specifically the way that I have told you today. They're both crucial organs, they both have their functions, but we can eat specific foods and do specific activities that increase our brain functioning. And the last one, as long as my brain is working fine, why should I even pay attention to it? So, for the same reason you should add gas to your car and change your oil regularly, that it works better and it performs longer. How many of you change your oil regularly in your car? Those of you who engage in that, yeah? Everybody? Good. This is the kind of thing that has always been true and will always be true for as long as oil is required for our cars. The same thing is for our brain. That we cannot forget about it. That not every 3,000 years or 3,000 days, but every day we need to be acknowledging we need to add oil. So that's the presentation. I've got about 5 minutes, 2 minutes, a little bit of time. Questions?
Can you talk about sleep on the brain?
Oh yeah, thank you. Sleep. So I didn't include that in this, not to say that sleep isn't important. Sleep is important for your whole body wellness, not necessarily just for the brain. What you have is lethargy if you don't get enough sleep. Now, I'm a perfect example of that. So, I got up this morning at 4:30 to do a garage sale at my house. It was cold and it was dark and I'm tired. But that's why and I engage in a good breakfast and a lot of coffee. At the end of the day, it's good. How many people are morning people? About half of you. How many are night people? I prefer to stay up late at night. No, okay, so just a couple of you, mostly morning people. I'm a night person. I like that 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock feel. But man, getting up at 6, that's not healthy. Because how many hours of sleep are we supposed to get? Supposed to get 8. A wise person once told me, this is how you should break up your day. 8 hours of work, 8 hours of play, 8 hours of sleep. And that's the truth. Now, some people like their work and they might maybe, go to 10 hours of work. Some people like their play and they might engage in a lot of play. Some people have no idea how to play. But the 8 hours of sleep are super essential all of your life. I mean, kids require a little bit more than 8, but thank you for bringing that up because sleep does impact the brain.
Do you know of any TV programs, you mentioned that TV, any TV programs designed for something like this?
So the question is, TV programs designed for increasing cognitive reserve and building up the brain? Does anybody know? Because I don't. TV programs seem to just be entertainment for the most part. I'm sure Jeopardy. Yeah, good. So something like that, something where you have to think about it. The problem with Jeopardy is that they're geniuses, and I hate that show because they're so smart. But it's a good point because if Jeopardy, like Trivia Pursuit, gave you the amount of time you needed to solve it, then it would be good for you. But the problem is they're answering it when you're still trying to pronounce it. I'm sorry?
Do you know of any good websites to go on that would cover this kind of
So she's asking, do I know any good websites? Luminate.com has all of the brain games that I was talking about that I alluded to only briefly because there's only so much you can cover in an hour when it comes to brain games. But Luminate's a good one.
Okay, there's been a lot of books written in controversy on healthy oils like coconut oil.
Mm-hmm.
Because they say the brain is made up of fat and this is a good oil for the brain. Is that true?
Coconut oil specifically?
Yeah.
So the question about oils, I just read this yesterday. There are some good oils. I haven't read that coconut oil specifically is bad. I've only read good things about it. Has anybody read bad about coconut oil?
It's a medium chain triglyceride or whatever, and they say it's very beneficial.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if that's true.
Yes. So I've heard good things, great things about coconut oil. There was another oil, because obviously there are some bad oils, but I wish I could say for sure, and I just read it yesterday, they were saying a salad. There was a salad oil, where you put that on your salad, but there's probably a lot of different type of oils. I don't know for sure, but look that up if you're curious about oils, because yes, there are definitely some excellent ones with great benefits.
One more question.
Mm-hmm.
What about aphasia? Like when you're speaking and you lose the word.
Aphasia?
Yeah, is there a way to correct that by maybe doing these exercises?
Yes. So she's asking if there's ways to help aphasia, that word loss. It's funny that you should say that. Again, I reference my wife not because, I like to talk about her, but really because she is the speech-language pathologist. She worries about this all the time because in her family there is dementia and there is Alzheimer's. And so when she forgets something, and she does a lot of presentations, when she forgets, she's so hard on herself. And I always say, that's not dementia. That there are moments where we're just, look at me up here. There are moments where I'm like, what is that word? And when you speak in front of people, there is a higher amount of adrenaline that's running, and it causes you to remember things faster. When you're not doing this and you're just talking in conversation, sometimes it's really hard to remember stuff. But these brain games and these 5 areas of the brain, that I think aphasia can easily be improved with the mental exertion that I had talked about.
I also think just making sure that you put yourself out there and interacting with people sharpens your ability with the vocabulary and so forth.
That's a great point. So
Avocado oil is good.
avocado oil, is that found when you're eating avocados, or do you have to?
No, you can buy it. We cook.
Oh, okay. Avocado oil, I'll look into that.
Organic festivals, sell it, and so forth.
That's great. Avocado oil, good.
It seems to me that writing such as history, your history, family history, so forth,
Yeah.
is good for you. And
Yes.
Good for your thinking. I don't know if there's any validity to that or not.
Yeah. Writing your family history, engaging in family history. That's the genealogy and so forth.
Yeah, I think, to revive those memories.
Yes. Evoking memories and all that. Yeah, I think so. I think that, like maybe putting together a puzzle, there's nothing that is actually occurring with mental exertion when you're putting together a puzzle, right? But you're thinking of things. And I think similar with family history, you're thinking of things. It's not a bad thing. It might not be exertion. It might be more of an activity, but
When you travel, your mind is always alert because you never know what.
We can't hear.
A little closer, just we'll be right there, just a little closer.
When you travel, you never know what's going to happen, so your mind is always alert and it's ready for the next step and so on.
yeah, so she said when you travel, your mind is always alert. Are you saying travel especially maybe out of the country or anywhere?
Yes, with an airplane.
Yeah, yeah. Your mind is always alert, and that's true. I think that there's two types of travel. There's strictly vacation travel where you just want to relax, and there's travel where you want to learn. If you go to Europe, basically any place other than the United States, if you are outside of the country, you do need to stay alert, and you do need to stay sharp, and hopefully you're there to learn. And that's a wonderful exertion.
Beginning of Alzheimer's or something different?
Is dementia the beginning of Alzheimer's? No, so dementia is the overall umbrella. It's the overall umbrella. There are a lot of different types of dementias. Alzheimer is one of them and probably the most common. But there's Huntington's disease, there's Pick's disease, there's Parkinson's, which is a neurological decline. There's a lot of dementias. Precognitive decline is often the start of an Alzheimer's type, but there are 7 stages to Alzheimer's that maybe some of you might know. So there's that really, really early stage that we kind of refer to as precognitive decline. And then if it is truly Alzheimer's, you will see the kind of the progression of those stages occur. And there's not a lot you can do about that except make them longer. Make it last, you know what I mean? Like stay in stage 1 longer, performing these types of mental exertion activities. Unfortunately, we have no cure for Alzheimer's yet, and I sure hope that we're headed that direction because it's a tough disease to be a caregiver for and obviously go through as human beings. So all I can say is engage beyond the television, engage in these activities, physical, fitness, the dietary and the mental exertion, and you're going to increase your abilities cognitively. Thank you very much. I appreciate your participation.
The Sun Health Center for Health and Wellbeing offers a variety of informative classes, one-on-one consultations, and valuable memberships. To find out more about our unique services, contact us today at 623-832-WELL. That's 623-832-9355, or visit us online at sunhealthwellbeing.org.